Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Shadowlands video. So, do you want to see a whole bunch of new cool customizations and learn a whole bunch of lore and what it all means? Well, today we've got you covered because Blizzard have put a massive amount of work into this stuff, and be it High Elves, the original style Highborn, Dark Rangers, or something else, there's a pretty decent chance that you're covered with what's going on here. Well, unless you want Alliance High Elves, because yeah, that's a little bit of a contentious issue that's cropped up. Now, do you want to support our Shadowlands coverage and what our team is doing here, and also get some cool loot in your post box? Well, you can hit up this month's Patreon. You'll get these two special landscapes that are a send-up of space science fiction, what TBC really showed us, as well as the Troll Bundle, and yes, the pre-order of the Priest Pin. All from our game dev team to your post box, and yeah, with the ad revenue falling in half, you guys have helped us out so much, so yes, thank you, and with that, let's get into the video. Well, move over allied races, we have just got some of the playable races that we've always wanted in World of Warcraft, seriously, for years. We've had several updates to character creation over the years, but with modern MMOs having, well, you know, a lot more dynamic character creation, it was about damn time that Blizzard actually put some expanded effort into World of Warcraft stuff. So today we're going to go and look through the new customizations and consider the lore that actually ties them into the setting, some of the cool fantasies you'll be able to evoke with your character, and what it might actually mean moving forward. We really are getting the biggest update to customization yet, and when the devs decided to radically expand character customization, well, they had a rich lore to work from. That gives us a lot of exciting stuff to talk about. This conversation has got to start with the Trolls. They are getting some of the most lore-significant changes, and there's just so much to get through with the Trolls. It's really great stuff. They were the first race to form an empire that stretched across Azeroth like thousands of years ago, and evidence of their once great civilization is found absolutely everywhere across the planet, and they are one of the most diverse races in the game. So now players have got the opportunity to roll just about every Troll tribe that we have ever encountered, and some of it's actually lore significant. First, we've got the rich blue and purple ice troll skin tone. They were never directly part of the Horde, so this is actually evidence that the Zandalari actually convinced their tribal allies to join up as well, which is also true for the new dark troll customization. Now, these dark trolls, they're the closest cousin of the night elves, and up until recently, we actually presumed they were essentially extinct. So does this solve the mystery of what happened to the dark trolls? I mean, maybe. The last we had heard, actually, the Twilight's Hammer had wiped them out, and Speaker Iknal was just being kept in Zandalar pretty much as a memento. So, there's that. And yeah, certainly we're going to see more Dark Trolls in the game regardless. Now, the one that most players, I'd say, are looking forward to is the inclusion of the Forest Trolls. These guys have been an important member of the Horde canonically for a very long time, from the Amanai in Warcraft 2 all the way through to the Revamped, who are located in the hinterlands. So it's great we can finally play them. There is also the very interesting inclusion of the Sand Trolls, who actually traditionally worshipped the Loa of Death, not Bumsamdi, Muzala. Of course, Muzala is very important in Shadowlands. If you want to learn more, watch this video, and he certainly is a villain. So this actually makes the Sand Fury inclusion quite interesting here. How do they actually get into the Horde? I mean, their general, who you'll remember from BFA, was on the Zandalari Council, tried to kill the Horde, tried to sell us out. So we're going to have to see how that one actually progresses. Perhaps the Sand Furies will find themselves with a new leader who will be a lot more pro-us. Then another very expansive change to all the trolls is the new tattoo option. So, you know, consider putting that spider face tattoo on your forest troll, the skull in your dark troll as a sort of sign of your fallen tribe. And then with those skeleton tattoos, you could really get that sort of dark spear following Vol'jin vibe, right? That shadow hunter vibe, which is pretty cool. There's just so many options now, to the point where when you pick the troll race, you can pick any troll race, and that is so good for just having really good trolls in the game. Next up, dwarves, and yes, finally, we've got the wild hammers. You can soar through the sky, riding your griffin, throwing your hammer. Well, maybe not throwing the hammer in mounted combat in the sky, but you know what I mean. We can get what you've always wanted since Warcraft 2. Then, the new tattoo options for the wild hammers are really great, and they really do just expand their culture. They don't look like random marks either. I really like the significant feel to the designs that Blizzard have done there. And really, lore-wise, otherwise, with the War of the Three Hammers being over for quite some time now, and the Dark Iron Dwarves being in the Alliance, I mean, yeah, it's about damn time, right? So we'll see this increased presence of a unified Dwarven people. Now, that will be represented in the characters that we can play. Finally, this is a much-needed update to the Dwarves, and I mean, historically, they had felt a little bit bland, so with the Dark Irons coming in and being common, it only makes sense that the Wildhammers got the same treatment, though it certainly is interesting that they're not an allied race, right? For being such a unique clan, you would have thought it would have been an allied race, but I suppose Blizzard just sort of thought, you know what, would that just be too much bloat? I think that's probably what they thought. Next, the Draenei. They didn't get any big changes, but what they did get will make them a lot more distinct from their Lightforged cousins. I think that's a division that we're actually going to see deepen in the future, I would say, given where that lore is probably going to go. Otherwise, though, you've got these new saturated skin tones that I think are going to look great going into the Shadowlands, and they sort of show off a less Marty defined side of the Draenei, right? Like those more saturated skin tones, they do remind us a little bit more of what the Eredar look like, so maybe it's one step closer to playable Eredar, or something like that. Alright, Forsaken time. They're getting a change I thought I'd never see, and that is the option to cover up their bones. Got to imagine that this is the new crop of Forsaken, you know, raised up by Sylvanas, who just didn't have that much time to rot. And even with that cover-up, you know, I'm sort of happy to see Blizzard double down on the sort of macabre element of the Forsaken, whilst also giving us more options. And their story, as we go into the Shadowlands, that is rife with tension, and there's a very good chance of major infighting within their people, and also backstabbing. And then, you know, with Kalia Menethil being some sort of light-based undead, and then us having Night Elven Dark Rangers, I mean, there's a big chance for very distinctive Forsaken models, and of course, while it's not confirmed, I do have to wonder, like, will we actually see non-human undead, like undead elves, for this faction at some point? Anyway, there's also a whole new range of hair colors, along with super edgy styles. It really seems like the Royal Apothecary Society have just turned to shipping peroxide with all of these really vibrant hairstyles as opposed to the more sort of muddy reds and blues we had before. And this actually does bring up an interesting point for the Forsaken. It's been nearly 2 decades, right? And they've never really felt like self-expressionate types. But with Sylvanas gone and their literal afterlife, or the literal afterlife now being available to visit, seems like they found a bit more individuality, right, as people. So that's kind of a cool thing that I think players will appreciate. Next up, the Night Elves. And between these customizations and the Night Warrior story arc, I think we are bound for a far darker Night Elf characterization in Shadowlands, which, thinking back to War 3, I really do want to see. Each of their new skin tones has this ashen look, as if they're sort of covered in grief from Teldrassil. Their new tattoo customizations, I think, reflect this as well. There's more jagged, irregular lines as opposed to the more graceful, natural-looking tattoos that they had before, and yeah, it just makes it seem like they're a bit angry, out for blood. And there's a few notable changes here. So first, right, we've got this blue, almost grey skin tone, and this very much to me looks like a pre-transformation Ashara, and it will be a way, I think, for Alliance players to create old-style Highborn, i.e. those Highborn not altered by, you know, the future lore in the Sunwell. Then also, there's the pale pink skin tone, which reminds me of the Highborn found in Dire Maul, and that might represent yet another variation of the Highborn added to the Night Elf race. And, you know, although those just could be palette tones that are a cool look for the Shadowlands, I think that there's enough evidence suggesting, right, like with the mages, that the Highborn are reintegrated back into Night Elf society, and now that is something that with these skin tones, your mage can actually have, and be a lot more lore friendly. Then also, Night Elves will have the option for the first time of black hair. You could say that this is a result of the Night Warrior process, and it really does complement those new skin tones. We then got a new blonde hair option, which is another first going on, which kind of could represent something, you know, maybe natural, maybe a style that they have borrowed, maybe picked up from the refugees in Stormwind or something like that. But finally, though, I want to talk about the ultimate Night Elf power fantasy of the modern era for Shadowlands. That is, a marksman hunter, some of those pallid skin tones, white eyes, black hair. You kind of have a Night Elven Dark Ranger look going on there. You will be able to achieve that. You really can be as edgy as you want this time, and that's pretty cool. Next up, the Orcs. They've got new scar options, and what's cool here is there's 2 different types. First, there is natural scarring taken from wounds in combat, but secondly, and far more interestingly, we actually have ritual scarification. Orcs have certainly gone through quite a bit as a people recently, so they would have their scars, but more importantly, they've progressed so much as a race. but they're still keeping some of their traditions with that ritual scarification that I think is just going to let you have some really cool looks for your character. So that's another great thing to see. Then next up, the Worgen are getting a whole new range of fur colors. In what has become a theme for Shadowlands, we're getting a range of paladin deathly colors. There's the new blonde Worgen as well, potentially representing maybe some non-Gilneans, right, sort of making it in there, who have been cursed. It does complement, though, of course, the rolling fields of Bastion going around as your blonde Worgen. And then, of course, there's an Arctic variation, which I think is pretty darn cool. Be a great look for questing in, Winter Spring or Northrend, somewhere like that. So overall, nothing major there, but I mean, certainly more customization options, and the Worgen, of course, have had their revamp, which is also something that they dearly needed. So, really good stuff to see. And then next, let's wade into the drama. It seems like the Horde have got a racial option that the Alliance players have been asking for a very, very long time indeed. And that is High Elves. Yeah, you can now get Blood Elves, but with a blue eye customization that, it's not really making the Alliance that happy at all. If it's any consolation, they didn't get literal Dark Rangers, and the Alliance can sort of make their Night Elf look like a Dark Ranger. So that's what's going on there in terms of the lore. And there you go, everyone's looking pretty great as we're going into the Shadowlands. Now, past these sort of lore additions, right, like these are the ones that we were able to sort of look at and like tease out the in-game lore. There's also loads more skin tones and stuff. Blizzard also redid the human racial options, which look way better now than they did in the past. And I mean, yeah, we've just seen a lot of great stuff here. And if you think about all these things, then all the new armor sets you can get, you're kind of getting a sense of the Shadowlands aesthetic. So you can imagine your character, right, with their new deathly, dark character customizations in their full set of Covenant gear, marching through the Shadowlands. And yeah, I think it's all going to come together quite nicely to make a strong, immersive experience. But, it won't just be the look and the feel of our characters. These changes, they do reflect broader changes in the Alliance and the Horde, as we've explored in this video, especially with the Trolls and the Dwarves. It all began with the humans and the Orcs, then the Trolls, Dwarves, Ogres, and Elves. And when WoW launched, the factions were these disparate organizations in this big, bad world. It was a lot more untamed. And, there were still trolls outside of the Horde. There was antagonistic dwarves. But over the past 15 years, the Alliance and the Horde, they have grown, right? They've consolidated. They are now the dominant factions in the Warcraft setting. They control Azeroth, some parts of space, now even the underworld potentially. And I suppose these changes just do represent how everyone is now involved in the factions, right? It's not just the High Elves of Teldrassil. We've now got the Highborn of Dire Maul and stuff like that coming in. Yeah, everyone's a lot more unified and bigger. Of course, that is until Tyrande probably tries to drive a wedge through the entire darn thing in some sort of quest for vengeance. At least that's what we assume she'll do. But of course, the Ardenweald storyline could reveal quite a bit more indeed. So, there you go. Big look at the new lore customizations you can have for your character. Yeah, I mean, hey, now we're progressing, right? From the marksmanship hunter called Legolas, spelt with some funny version of, holding down your keyboard and getting an alt character, to, your sort of Dark Ranger, goth, edgy hunter. You can do that now. I'm sure that'll be pretty darn popular. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. Let me know what you think about the new customizations, what things you'd actually like to see. And with that, I'll see you next time.
Mm-hmm.